I'm going to jump right into it. The NFL playoffs, I'm not even going to say arguably. The NFL playoffs are the best playoffs in America. I know a lot of people like hockey. I know a lot of people watch the NBA. A lot of people love baseball in October. But it's nothing like the NFL playoffs. And with the NFL playoffs, I believe it's way past time that the NFL switches and changes its playoff system. I think baseball should do it also, but right now I'm focused on the NFL. I believe the NFL should adopt what hockey and what the NBA do, where it's a 16 format playoff system where you have 8 teams on each side. I feel like the NFL should have 8 teams in the AFC playoffs and 8 teams in the NFC playoffs, where it's nice and balanced. No more, okay, well, if the lower seed wins, then they play this person in the second round. If this seed wins, if the higher seed wins, then they play this person in the next round. I feel like you should already know who you're playing before you have to play them. Okay, well, if we win and they win, then we play them. If we win and they win, we play them. That's like common sense to me. With the system in place how it is now, this is what the AFC standings look like. You got Baltimore as the number 1 seed, Kansas City the number 2 seed, Jacksonville the number 3 seed, Miami the number 4 seed. So you have all 4 division leaders in the top 4. Then the next 3, the people who are being in the playoff, the wild card teams, you have Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Indianapolis. And then you have the people that would be considered in the hunt. I'm a Bronco fan, so it's nice to see us. We started out 1-5, now we're 6-5. Be in the hunt in 8th place. I'm in 9th place, but we do play the Texans this upcoming Sunday, so we'll see. Then you got Buffalo, Houston, Cincinnati, the Raiders. These are all 16 teams right now in the AFC. It's weird seeing the Patriots that far at the bottom, but hey, Bill Belichick need to give up his GM responsibilities and let somebody else pick the players. Hopefully they can pick them a quarterback this year. But right now, this is how in the current format, how the AFC playoffs would look if the playoffs started today. Now we're going to take a look at the NFC playoff picture. For the NFC playoff picture, you have the Philadelphia Eagles at the number 1 seed being 10-1. Then you got San Francisco. Philadelphia and San Francisco are going to play this week. That's going to be a great game. Then you got Detroit at number 3, Atlanta at number 4, Dallas at number 5. Then you got Minnesota and Seattle finishing off for the top 7 playoff teams. Then you got Green Bay in the hunt, the Rams in the hunt, the Saints and Tampa Bay in the hunt. So as we stand right now, this would be, if the playoffs started today with the current format, this is how the playoffs will look. And the NFC is really the main, like, I didn't just think about this year. I've been thinking about this for some years now. But this NFC picture is prime example of why the playoff system needs to be changed. And I'm about to go into details of how the changes would be if I could make the changes, what changes I would make. Because this right here, to me, is a mess. Look at Atlanta. Like, before I even get into the changes that I would make, just look at Atlanta right there. Atlanta is 5-6. Sitting in between an 8-3 Lions team and an 8-3 Dallas team. Now, let's be real here. Where's the fairness in that? Where is the fairness in that? A 5 and 6 team is between 2, 8, and 3 teams. But yeah, that's one of the main reasons why I feel the playoff system should be changed. And these are the changes that I would make. The first change I would make, just like the NBA and the NHL, I would switch the playoff team, switch to 8 playoff teams in each conference. 8 in the AFC, 8 in the NFC. Then I would go by the top 8 teams in each conference overall by record get into the playoffs. So whoever has the best 8 records, that's who get in the AFC and the NFC. Number 3, I would make it so that division isn't a waste of time. I would make it so the division winners automatically make the playoffs, but they don't get the host. So with Atlanta being, just think about the fairness in that. Right now, Dallas is 8-3, but if the playoffs started, they would have to go to Atlanta, who's only 5-6. So Dallas is probably going to finish like 13-4, and between like New Orleans, Atlanta, and Tampa Bay, one of them is probably going to finish 9-8. So you telling me that's fair that more than likely a 13-4 Dallas is going to have to go to a 9-8 New Orleans, or a 9-8 Atlanta, or a 9-8 Tampa Bay? That's not fair. So again, I would make it to where the divisions count, but again, the division winners would automatically make the playoffs. They just wouldn't get to host a playoff game. Another thing, number 4, after the last game of the season, the 17th game, all 16 teams that make the playoffs, I would give all of them a bye so everyone has a chance to rest. And then the playoffs will start the next Saturday. I would have 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and 2 games that Monday night. And then the last change I would make is no more automatic advancements in the playoffs, meaning the number 1 seed would have to play in the first round. Like, this is not some 7th grade middle school basketball tournament where you if you're the home team, you automatically advance to the second round. You are a professional team. Professional teams should not get to automatically go to the second round. How do I know you really would have beat everybody if you played every round? If you are the best of the best, you really the number 1 seed, take on that challenge. Show me that nobody can beat you. You should have to play every round just like everybody else. Like, it shouldn't be, okay, with the number 1, because basically you're really getting triple rewarded, because 1, you get a bye, 2, you get home field throughout the playoffs, and 3, you're getting an automatic advancement. That's way too many perks. Give everybody a bye. You still have hope, because, well, that's what because everybody like to make that excuse. Well, if you do that, what's the use of getting the number 1 seed? The number 1 seed shouldn't be to get the bye. The number 1 seed, the advantage is you have home field throughout the playoffs. The NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game will be in your house. That is the perk of having the number 1 seed, not just let me get a bye. Because if that's really the problem, if I just said I would give everybody a bye, then what's the issue? Because how many times in the last few years have we seen the number 1 team or the number 2 team get a bye, and then when they come out, they lose the very first game they play? We just saw that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when both teams lost the first game they played, the number 1 seeds. When Tennessee was number 1 and they lost to Cincinnati, and when Green Bay was number 1 and they lost to San Francisco. So just because you're the number 1 seed doesn't automatically mean, okay, you go get a bye and then you go win the first game. Because we've seen what happened to Baltimore like 4 years ago. Remember when Baltimore finished 14-2? And then they went out there to Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee came to Baltimore and beat them 28 to what, 10, 28-7, something like that. So that number one seed getting a bye, that can actually come back to hurt you. So that would be my last rule, where the number at one seed has to play in the wild card round. No more automatic advancements. So based off my changes, this is how the playoff picture should look like if we go by my changes. Baltimore will have the number one seed. They would be playing the Texans, right? If the playoffs started today, Baltimore at 9-3 would play the Texans at 6-5. At the number, and then the winner of that in the divisional round, the winner would play whoever wins out of Miami and Pittsburgh. And then the number 2 seed, Kansas City, would play the number 7 seed, Indianapolis. And then the winner of that would play whoever wins out of Jacksonville and Cleveland. And then in the hunt, you still got the Broncos for life. You got the Bills, the Bengals, the Raiders, and the Chargers. So based off of my changes, that is how the AFC playoffs would look. Baltimore would still get a bye, just like all the other playoff teams. They would all still get a bye, except Baltimore would have to play in the first round, and they would have to play Houston. And I'm going, but see, the AFC, the overall record thing really doesn't affect them like it does the NFC. The NFC is more determinant of the playoff picture. Because the AFC, the playoffs are just, they lined up perfectly in the AFC. Now, the NFC, that's where it's a little different. Because in the NFC, the Eagles would be the number one seed still, but they would have to play in the first round against the Packers, and I'm pretty sure they would probably blow the Packers out. But the number 4, then the winner of that game would play Detroit, whoever wins out of Detroit and Minnesota. Now, the number 2 seed would still be San Francisco, and they would play Atlanta. Atlanta would not host the game. Atlanta would have to go on the road to San Francisco. Dallas would actually have the number 3 seed because Dallas is 8-3. Dallas would have the number 3 seed, and they would host Seattle. So Seattle would have to go to Dallas to play the Cowboys. So then whoever wins out of those two would play each other. So it's possibly going to be Dallas and San Francisco again, probably. And then the Eagles against probably the Lions. But then in the hunt, you would have the Rams, the Saints, the Buccaneers, and so on. So basically, like I said, I would have it to where you're going by the overall record. The number 1 seed has to play in the first round. I'm not adding any extra rounds. It's still wild card, divisional, championship game, and Super Bowl. No extra rounds are added. The only difference is the number 1 seed has to play in the first round. And I don't see any issues with that, because overall they're still getting a bye. You still get home field. The only difference that I'm really making is I'm adding one more team to each side, and the number 1 seed has to play. That's really the only difference. And the thing about, the reason why this is, if you do that, you're going to water down the playoff. No, it's not. Because the NFL, what makes the NFL so special, different from the NBA and the NHL, in those leagues, you have to win series. In the NFL, you have one bad game, you can go home. That's why they call it Any Given Sunday. Because if this were the playoffs right here, and the Eagles had a bad game, and Green Bay beat them at 5-6, like, do you know how crazy? Like, people will go people would love to see a number 8 team knock off a number 1 team in the NFL. And then I feel like, you know how many Green Bay fans there are? Now, if this was an actuality, how many Green Bay fans would be happy to be in the playoffs as a number 8 seed? They gonna be out there. Well, it's not gonna be in Green Bay, but I was gonna say they'll be out there in that frozen weather. But it's still gonna be cold in Philly, and they gonna make that trip to Philadelphia to watch their team. That's the beauty of the NFL. Any Given Sunday. So, for me, I just feel like these changes make the perfect sense. Because I feel like the playoffs would be more exciting if you just made it balanced to where it's 8 teams on each side. Put them in order, go by the best overall record. No more 10-7 teams hosting 13-4 teams like that. But yeah, that's the end of my video. Tell me what you think about the changes. More videos coming soon. Subscribe to the channel. Trey T out. Peace.